Versatile Mage. Chapter 556. Fighting the Corpse General in the Rain. Shit. Lots of zombies are heading in our direction. They seem to be following this Corpse General's order, yelled a Lee. Don't panic. A zing, Lee, you two handle the zombies, said the black silk woman Menge. Her hair was soaking wet from the rain. Even her black veil had almost fallen off her attractive face. Everyone thought they would never have the chance to see her face because of the veil, yet she did not seem to be bothered. She tore the veil off and threw it to the ground, revealing a jade-white, perfect face. It did not turn out to be a full Western face. Without taking a closer look, it did not have any huge difference compared to the looks of an Eastern woman, but her eyes were glittering like stars. Her eyelashes, with raindrops dangling at the edges, were extraordinarily attractive. Mo Fan had long dreamt of seeing her face, and his wish had just come true. Yet, since the filthy Corpse General, serving as a great contrast to the woman's beauty, was standing right before them, he had no time to indulge in her gorgeous looks. Menge seemed to know Mo Fan's strength. After sending her two subordinates to handle the zombies, she quickly went up to Mo Fan and Lu Ru and said firmly, "We'll deal with it together. Run, run you fools, there's no way you can fight against a giant Corpse General." Shorty still showed a slight bit of conscience by not running for his life straight away. Shorty had spent years in the ancient capital. He was well aware of how terrifying a Corpse General was. Most undead were servant class, yet even a team of intermediate magicians could easily be overwhelmed by their numbers. However, agitating a Corpse General was closer to a death sentence. The Corpse General could summon all the undead within a kilometer to it. Even if they were able to kill several hundred undead, there was no way they could hold off thousands of zombies rushing toward them like a surging current. A Corpse General would be a nightmare for intermediate magicians, let alone this giant Corpse General before them that had been nurtured by the land of the undead for decades. Normally, only advanced magicians could handle a giant Corpse General. Even a team consisting of the elites among intermediate magicians would be wiped out too. The whole place is filled with undead. The rain has cut off the route we're taking. We have nowhere to run to either. It will only be a matter of time until we're caught. It's almost dawn, let's hold them off until then, said Mo Fan. Menge shared the same thought as Mo Fan. Running was meaningless in a situation like this. Not only was the giant Corpse General enormous, its speed was incredible too. A single roar would attract the undead in the surroundings to intercept them. There was no way they could possibly escape from the creature. The only choice was to eliminate the giant Corpse General before a vast number of undead arrived. Lu Ru, lure the zombies in that direction away, said Mo Fan to Lu Ru after casting a glance in a certain direction in the rain. Lu Ru nodded. She quickly disappeared into the rain. "Can she handle it?" said the muscular man in astonishment when he saw the seemingly weak woman charging in the direction of the undead by herself. "Don't worry, she's not as weak as you have imagined," said Mo Fan. It was likely that Lu Ru's current strength was stronger than the vampire Nidong. When she had first turned into a vampire, she was able to inflict serious damage to Nidong. Now that she had gotten used to the power, these zombies stood no chance against her. Besides, even if she were overwhelmed by the zombies, the undead would stop attacking her once she withdrew her presence. Strictly speaking, the breath she exhaled was not living either. Come keep me company." The hatchet Corpse General's hideous face twisted. The words it uttered sent a chill down everyone's spine. The cold rain poured down heavily. The giant Corpse General swung its hatchets wildly at Mo Fan and Menge with pure brute force. The creature was not relying on the hatchet's sharpness to murder its target, but simply using their weight to crush its prey. Fleeing shadow, Mo Fan uttered the chant of the spell. His figure blended with the shadow and sank into the ground in the rain, quickly moving over 20 meters away. Similarly, Menge also possessed the shadow element. Her fleeing shadow was third tier, hence her speed was slightly slower than Mo Fan's, and the spell did not summon two shadows. After creating some distance from the hatchet corpse general, Mo Fan glanced at Menge and could only see her blurry gorgeous face in the rain. Try and control its movement with giant shadow spike. I'll attract its attention. Menge nodded. Her glamorous figure vanished into thin air once again. Lightning strike. Mo Fan instantly cast the basic lightning spell. The 4th tier lightning strike produced several lightning eels close to the target, while the rain conducted the electricity too, resulting in a succession of crackling noises. Mo Fan controlled the lightning strike and created an electric field in the direction the hatchet corpse general was heading. The space-shaking effect of the purple-black lightning flickers spread the lightning arcs even further. The hatchet corpse general was just about to lunge at Mo Fan when it set its foot into the electric field. Its soaking wet body helped to conduct the electricity into it. Unfortunately, the bones and muscles of the undead were dead to begin with. On top of that, the hatchet corpse general had fairly thick and sturdy skin. The paralyzing effect was not effective enough to immobilize the creature, it only slowed it down. The hatchet corpse general was fairly invulnerable. Even a 4th tier basic spell was nowhere near enough to stop it. It charged at Mo Fan wildly after receiving the lightning strike, swinging the giant hatchets like a meat lawnmower. Blood tabby. Mo Fan did not preserve his strength. He used his boot equipment straight away. Accumulating the force under his feet, Mo Fan leapt sideways into the air over 10 meters away, dodging the giant corpse general's tank-like charge. However, as soon as Mo Fan landed on the ground, the hatchet corpse general had already recovered from its momentum and arrived before him. It lashed out with the 4 hatchets. Mo Fan was astounded by the corpse general's speed. As Shorty mentioned, even a team of intermediate magicians was not enough to take the creature down. Luckily, Mo Fan was prepared for it, as the place he landed was dark enough for him to cast the fleeing shadow. As soon as the corpse general swung its hatchets down, Mo Fan sank into the ground in the form of a shadow. The shadow quickly split into 2. One of them moved into the distance like a black stray cat running past at night. The giant corpse general quickly assumed the human was trying to run away as soon as it saw the shadow moving away quickly. It started running after the shadow before its swinging arms came to a stop, and proceeded to smash the shadow into pieces a few seconds later. This giant corpse general is most likely stronger than the pseudomorphing demon beast. Mo Fan came out from the shadow and fixed his eyes on the giant corpse general. Warrior-level creatures could be further categorized into different levels. Back then, the group had consisted of students who were all intermediate magicians, yet they were almost wiped out by the traps set up by the pseudomorphing demon beast in the abandoned Jinland city. In comparison, the giant corpse general was even stronger than the pseudomorphing demon beast that relied on traps to hunt its prey. Its fighting capacity was shocking. Even experienced hunters were no match for it. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 557. Black Snake Magic Armor. The giant corpse general immediately turned around after realizing that it had picked the wrong target. The woman's head let out a shriek at Mo Fan. The cold breeze swept past Mo Fan's face along with some raindrops. The blood tabby was still activated, allowing him to dodge the corpse general's attack from the current distance. The corpse general stomped forward and swung its axes wildly. Several zombies nearby were simply slashed into pieces without even noticing. Giant Shadow Spike. Menge finally finished casting her intermediate shadow spell as the corpse general was just about to charge forward. She released an icy aura of the shadow element. The dark energy was a lot stronger than the power Mo Fan possessed. It was obvious that Menge had a relatively high-quality shadow seed. The 3 giant shadow spikes disappeared into the rain. Menge did not delay the giant shadow spikes. She knew the situation was not in their favor, so she quickly fired the 3 giant shadow spikes at the corpse general. Mo Fan's basic lightning spell was unable to paralyze the giant corpse general, but the giant shadow spikes were extremely effective for immobilizing their target. The first giant shadow spike immediately nailed the corpse general to its position, preventing it from moving around. It felt like the spike had penetrated its waist and stuck into the ground. The corpse general was unable to break free despite struggling wildly. After the second giant shadow spike landed, the corpse general had trouble making noise. Its arms stopped mid-movement. Its bloodshot eyes glared at Menge. As the third spike landed, the corpse general shivered in pain, as if it had suffered a great blow to its spirit. The giant shadow spike was effective against the ferocious corpse general, giving Mo Fan some time to catch his breath. He proceeded to draw a lightning star pattern. Thunderbolt. Wild strikes. Mo Fan was surrounded by flickers of electricity. As he pointed at the corpse general's head, several purple lightning strikes descended fiercely. The fierce lightning blasted the corpse general's body open. The flesh that was as hard as a tank scattered in the air, leaving a huge hole in the creature's body. Following a few more lightning strikes, the corpse general's body was clearly being blown apart, blood pouring out like a fountain. Any other creature would be half dead after suffering such successive blows, yet the damage to the undead creature was minimal. They could simply replenish the flesh and skin they lost by devouring other creatures. As long as the joints supporting their movement were intact, they would still be very much alive. The corpse general wriggled its blood-soaked body. The giant shadow spike began to loosen under the enormous pressure. The power of the giant shadow spikes was limited. If a creature's strength reached a certain level, it could simply break free. The corpse general soon freed itself. Humiliated by the injury it had just suffered, the woman's head on its body suddenly lashed out with a long tongue. The tongue flicked toward Mo Fan. Even Mo Fan's blood tabby was not quick enough to dodge the extended tongue. The tongue wrapped around Mo Fan's left foot and hoisted him into the air upside down. Mo Fan lost his balance. He could sense the corpse general approaching him. Once the tongue dragged him to the corpse general's side, he would either be chopped into minced meat or bitten to death by the woman's head. The woman's head was no longer just a normal human's head. Her mouth had taken up almost half of the entire face. It looked as if her forehead had cracked open all the way to the back of her skull. Menge was suddenly lost, not knowing how to save Mo Fan when she saw him being dragged away. She could only hear Mo Fan yelling in the air, "Use some other magic." Menge immediately drew a star pattern without hesitation. A thought crossed Mo Fan's mind as he was dragged closer to the corpse general. His figure was immediately covered in a blue-black glow. The glow was not produced by radiation. It was actually coiling around Mo Fan's joints like a soft ribbon. Initially, only 1 or 2 wisps of the blue-black glow were wrapping around his body, but soon his entire figure was encapsulated by the light. The corpse general raised 2 of its axes and flung them toward Mo Fan. A brilliant light scattered in the air. The hatchet struck his chest. Any human would have been torn apart by the enormous force. However, instead of the sound of flesh being torn apart, a piercing metallic screech rang out when the hatchets landed on Mo Fan. Mo Fan slammed to the ground right in front of the corpse general's feet. When the creature realized that the guy was still alive, it furiously raised its hammer foot and stomped down on his abdomen. Mo Fan was suffering from slight dizziness, yet he was still able to complete the shadow element star pattern in the short time he had. His figure sank into the shadow just as the corpse general was about to stomp him flat. He quickly moved to the side. The corpse general's stomp missed. On top of that, it could not tell which of the 2 shadows was the real Mo Fan. As a result, it swung all 4 arms around, 2 hatchets slashing at the shadow on the left and 2 others at the right. Mo Fan had just crawled out from the shadow when he was struck by the hacking axes. The weapon dealt a great blow to him before he could even establish a foothold, sending him flying in an arc through the rain, slamming into a pit as he landed on the muddy ground. Holy fuck! Mo Fan rose to his feet in pain. He could feel the taste of blood surging in his throat. He looked down and saw several deep scratches on the black snake armor. The material of the armor was relatively soft. Although the corpse general did not break a hole in it, the force still penetrated the armor into Mo Fan's body. It felt like all his organs were almost dislocated. Menge glanced at Mo Fan in astonishment. It was clear that the man's blue-black snake-scale magic armor was incredibly high quality. It was still in one piece after receiving a direct blow from the Corpse General. Dimensional summoning. A lunar white gap appeared in front of Menge. Chapter end. Versatile Mage. Chapter 558. The Dark Knight. The sound of rapid galloping came from the gap, sounding like it was approaching from a great distance. The next second, Mo Fan, still recovering from the blow, saw a great black horse leaping out from the lunar white gap. Its body was covered in dense black hair, with a black mist floating around it. The horse had a single horn, also black in color, emitting a flicker of black lightning. A figure wearing black armor sat on the horse. It looked similar to a human, yet the heavy European-style armor was completely empty inside. "What the hell is this?" asked the astonished Mo Fan. He was also a summoner, yet his dimensional summoning could only summon a wolf-type creature. It was quite impressive that he had managed to level up his beast to his current stage. To Mo Fan's surprise, the girl's dimensional summoning had summoned an even rarer creature. A Dark Knight. The figure indeed resembled a warrior sitting on an elegant black horse, holding a half-crescent scimitar. However, for some reason, the raindrops evaporated instantly when they landed on it. Dark Knight. Menge immediately ordered the imperious Dark Knight to deal with the giant Corpse General. Mo Fan did not summon the swift Star Wolf, as his summoned creature was no match for the giant Corpse General. It was likely the creature would die in the fight, but the Dark Knight Menge had summoned looked fairly promising. Since dimensional summoning was only a basic spell, there would be a limit to the summoned creature's strength. It was possible that the woman was only trying to buy them some time. Mo Fan could still feel his blood rumbling inside his body. The black snake magic armor had negated most of the damage, yet the same principle applied. The magician still had to endure the force from the hit. Mo Fan, unable to move for the time being, was watching Menge from afar, hoping she could hold on until he recovered. The horse uttered a shriek and raised its front limbs as the knight signaled from atop the saddle. The stomp sent the muddy water splattering. However, the horse had already turned into a black arrow, dashing forward with a wild gust of wind at the giant Corpse General before the droplets even landed. The knight on the horse held the scimitar with a reverse grip and leaned forward. Meanwhile, the giant Corpse General raised its four arms, waiting for the unique darkness creature to present itself. The knight and the horse almost became one, sweeping through the rain like a black arrow. The giant Corpse General was just about to fling its arms down, but the Dark Knight was already behind it. The scimitar was drawn from its sheath, leaving a long slash in the rain. The giant Corpse General had yet to realize that its body already had a giant hole. Its sturdy body shuddered for a second, before blood and water poured out. Mo Fan took a deep breath. Wasn't this Dark Knight a bit too quick? It simply finished the attack within the blink of an eye. The swift Star Wolf was well known for his speed, yet he was still a few levels lower than the Dark Knight. The giant Corpse General already had a great hole before it managed to bring its arms down. The Dark Knight did not stop and remain in his cool posture, quickly turning the horse around after finishing his blow. He utilized the momentum of the spin to execute a slash to the general's back. The black half-crescent sword slashed forward, the view even more stunning in the rain. The sharp edge landed on one of the giant Corpse General's limbs. Its limb, with flesh as hard as rock, was cleanly amputated upon contact with the blade. As the giant Corpse General's arm fell to the ground, the filthy creature uttered a seemingly pained or furious cry. It raised its other three limbs and charged at the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was incredibly fast with his sword. Despite facing the sequence of wild attacks from the three arms, it looked like he was drawing a web with the movements of his sword, completely nullifying the attacks from the giant Corpse General. Mo Fan was left speechless. Isn't this Dark Knight somehow too powerful? Not only did he inflict serious damage with only 2 attacks, he could defend himself against the creature's attacks. Try to recover quickly. My cultivation isn't strong enough. I can only summon him for a limited time, Menge reminded Mo Fan. Mo Fan felt better after hearing the words. Menge had obviously cast a basic summoning spell, yet if a basic spell alone could summon such a powerful darkness creature, she would not be afraid of the giant corpse general. As he thought, an exceedingly strong summoned creature would have limitations. Not only was the Dark Knight able to fight fearlessly, he had the upper hand in the battle, too. It implied that the Dark Knight was one of the strongest species in the summoning dimension, and usually, it was fairly difficult to control such creatures. Sword Burst Ultimate, the Dark Knight uttered in English. Mo Fan did not understand him, but he could easily tell the knight was speaking in the human tongue. A few rounds later, the Dark Knight moved nimbly and secured the perfect chance for a counterattack. He struck at lightning speed and immediately pulled back. A few moments later, the arm where the hit landed suddenly burst apart with the formidable energy of darkness. The energy exploded and blasted another limb of the giant corpse general to pieces. The Dark Knight had amputated another arm of the giant corpse general. The giant corpse general was now covered in wounds. As Mo Fan hoped the Dark Knight could simply finish it off, the knight suddenly sheathed his sword and galloped off into the distance. His figure slowly merged with the darkness in the rain. Even though he was fairly close, it looked like he had gone into a different dimension, slowly vanishing into thin air. If it weren't for the blood, amputated limbs, and sword marks around him, it felt like the Dark Knight had not even appeared. He had simply come and gone in a mysterious way. The time was too short. The Dark Knight was powerful, yet the duration he could stay was less than a tenth of the Swift Star Wolf. It's seriously injured. Don't give it any chance to come close to us, said Menge. My turn. Mo Fan decisively drew another lightning star pattern. Thunderbolt. Stormy clouds appeared above. Mo Fan, who had managed to catch his breath, immediately unleashed the full strength of the thunderbolt, wild strikes. The power of the lightning was more than enough to inflict damage on the giant corpse general, slamming its enormous body to the ground, leaving the creature covered in blood and holes, trembling in fear. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 559. It's daytime. The giant corpse general's blood and liquid were splattering across the place. Its wild attacks had finally weakened. The rain still fell heavily. Suddenly, a huge lump of mud sprouted into the air. Mo Fan was just about to cast a lightning spell to inflict serious damage on the giant corpse general. To his surprise, several zombies covered in mud suddenly appeared nearby. The zombies were heading for Mo Fan with their filthy mouths at surprising speed. Mo Fan turned around and saw the zombies breaking through the defense set up by Li and A Xing. The wave of them was rolling forward like a black current. Mo Fan had no choice but to interrupt his intermediate spell. His figure was surrounded by a lightning strike, creating an electric field around him. The electric field covered the area within 30 meters of Mo Fan's feet. The zombies that were lunging at him were paralyzed instantly. Lightning strike was ineffective against the warrior-level giant corpse general, yet it was more than enough to handle these servant-class undead. A huge number of undead were immobilized by Mo Fan's electric field. The lightning serpents dashed across the ground and struck the zombies. Those that were close to Mo Fan were quickly scorched by lightning. There are too many of them. We can't hold on any longer, yelled Ali. His voice had come from a huge group of zombies. It seemed he was completely surrounded by the undead. Same here, Lu Ru's voice said from the distance at the same time. There were simply too many zombies after every undead within a kilometer was summoned here. The longer the fight went on, the more zombies would show up. On top of that, the giant corpse general never stopped uttering cries, summoning the zombies nearby as cannon fodder. The team was completely surrounded by the undead. Despite the upper hand that the Dark Knight had granted them, the team soon found themselves in a pinch. Didn't I ask you to run away before? Great, none of us can leave now, complained Shorty. The giant corpse general did not charge at them recklessly. It had suffered quite serious injuries. It continued to cry endlessly and watched from afar, waiting for the zombies to wear out the team. The zombies uttered cries and shoved one another around to get closer to their target. Some even crawled onto the bodies of others. Mo Fan was able to keep the situation under control with the electric field. Menge was standing close to Mo Fan, relying on his electric field to provide her with some relief. However, she wore a huge frown still, as the situation was fairly grim for the team. She glanced at the sky and saw a thin ray of light barely making it through the rain. It will be daytime soon, she reminded everyone. Mo Fan glanced at the giant corpse general in the distance and saw the creature wearing a vicious grin as it uttered an unsatisfied cry. The frenzied undead suddenly halted in place. Faint sunlight shone down upon the place. The presence of death quickly dissipated. Without the presence of death, the undead were like stranded fish and began to jump around in a panic. They uttered terrified cries and covered their heads, extremely vulnerable to sunlight, and proceeded to dig into the ground. The undead entrapping a Li and a Xing quickly ran away. As a matter of fact, it had been daytime for quite a while, yet the thick clouds and rain had delayed it. Regardless of how weak the sunlight was, it was still light. Most importantly, once the presence of death which they breathed in dissipated, they would soon die to the sunlight if they did not return to the underground or back to their tombs. The zombies flowed away like a falling tide, similar to how they came. The undead had given Mo Fan and his crew a horrifying experience. If the darkness had only lasted just a little longer, they would have simply died to the surrounding zombies. Thank heaven, swore Shorty, who was too lazy to wipe the sweat off his face. Menge's two subordinates, a Li and a Xing, no longer looked relaxed as before. They regrouped with Menge, not knowing what to do with the injuries they had. They simply lowered their heads and apologized for failing to protect their master. Menge did not comment on it. She glanced at her rain-soaked clothes and her disheveled hair. Let's find a place to hide from the rain first. It's too cold. It's easy to get sick like this, said Lu Ru. It's still some distance to Hua village, said the muscular man. Head for the Qinling Mountains. There should be a cave somewhere. We can stay there for now, suggested Shorty. The demon beasts of Qinling Mountains aren't easy to deal with. Don't worry, I know a place without them, said Shorty. The team followed Shorty towards the Qinling Mountains. The place was like a natural barrier, standing upright and firm. It was quite difficult to find a cave based on the structure of the mountain walls. After all, the walls were fairly steep. Not everyone could walk on the steep walls. However, Shorty managed to lead everyone to a cave. It was located halfway along the walls and could only be reached by climbing up some vines. There used to be a blood beast here. Our team killed the beast around a year ago, so there shouldn't be any demon beasts living inside it, Shorty said as he spread apart the weeds covering the entrance of the cave. A Xing snapped his fingers and summoned a puff of flame at the tip of his finger. The flame lit up the cave. Even though there was a foul smell inside the cave, the air was fairly dry. It was a lot better than staying in the rain outside. You two, guard the entrance, Menge said to her subordinates calmly. The two nodded and guarded the path, not allowing anyone to go any deeper into the cave. Only Lu Ru, who was also a woman, was allowed to go past. The eyes of Shorty and Mo Fan, the two perverts, flickered. They stood on their toes, trying to peek into the cave over the two subordinates. Unfortunately, it was completely dark inside. It turned out that Menge had summoned a dark curtain, preventing Mo Fan, who also possessed the shadow element, from peeking inside. The cave was quiet, with 2 men guarding the path and 3 other men waiting at the entrance. They could hear rustling from the cave as clothes slid across the women's soft, tender skin. The men simply stared at one another, feeling their throats and mouths turning dry. Chapter N. Versatile Mage. Chapter 560. Who would complain about having too many girls? Try to peek again and I'll dig your eye out, snapped a Xing when he saw Shorty's lewd acts. Who's peeking? I'm just feeling a bit tired. By the way, that was such a close call, I thought we were done for. Shorty sat on the ground, as if he was trying to imply that it was not worth it to go so far just for the money. It wasn't supposed to be that bad, but the rain delayed the daylight, said Mo Fan. Not only was the giant corpse general powerful, it was also able to summon zombies to attack them. He initially thought they had a chance to eliminate the enormous creature, yet they were so close to being overwhelmed by the zombie horde. The land of the undead was indeed terrifying. Even with their team's strength, they were almost wiped out by the undead. We shouldn't risk it since it's still raining. The ash garlic isn't working, said the muscular man sternly. We can't simply hide here if the rain somehow doesn't stop anytime soon. Said Mo Fan. We should still wait for a while, right? Those who are hurt should treat their wounds now, even if it's only a little scratch. Those zombies are poisonous. The wounds will fester in a few hours. Said the experienced Shorty. Do we seriously have to wait until they're done changing? We're all grown-ups, let's just change here. The cold is bothering me, suggested Mo Fan. Everyone agreed with Mo Fan. They quickly took off the clothes and took out fresh clothes from the airtight packages in their bags. The crackling from the bonfire was the only sound in the cave. Everyone was fairly tired from the epic battle. After treating their wounds and changing into dry clothes, they all laid down on some dry grass to rest. Everyone was too tired to speak. Menge had put on a new veil. It was a charming purple this time, concealing her attractive face. What are you doing here in the land of the undead? Asked Mo Fan. Menge blinked and said softly with a faint smile, we've got an uncooperative associate here, so we're here to talk to him. Oh. What organization are you from? Asked Mo Fan. Parthenon. I think I've heard of it before. Mo Fan fell into deep thought. It's quite famous, Menge nodded. Don't tell me you're a saintess, goddess, princess, or something like that. I've seen a lot of them on TV who cover their face and dress up in casual clothes to visit the commoners, Mo Fan asked with a smile. Menge was not the icy type. Even though her temperament felt like she was above the common populace, she was still willing to answer his questions. The woman smiled and shook her head when she heard Mo Fan's wild speculation. I'm not that sacred. Hiding my face is only my personal preference. I think the veil is pretty. Our country's air quality isn't great. Wearing a veil won't make any difference. Even a mask is useless, said Mo Fan. Menge giggled softly. Her voice, holding a mix of charm and sanctity, echoed in the cave. Shorty sat on the side, watching Mo Fan teasing Menge with a dull expression. He finally ran out of patience, pulling Mo Fan to the side and whispering, brother, it's I who found the woman first. Shouldn't you behave yourself? Brother, are you seriously stopping me when you're trying to put up an act? Responded Mo Fan mercilessly. Menge was fairly attractive, and together with her mysterious identity, why would a normal man like Mo Fan not have the right to communicate with her? It was obvious that the woman did enjoy chatting with an Eastern man who was both handsome and knowledgeable, like him. You've brought one yourself. You should look after her feelings instead. Can't you leave Menge to me? Whispered Shorty. Idiot. Who would complain about having too many girls? It's quite a journey for her to travel all the way here to China. I should let her experience the charm and humor of a Chinese man. Shot back Mo Fan. The rain poured down heavily. Hua village looked blurry in the rain. Gray sky, gray land, and a lonely village standing between the sky and the ground. All the colors it had were washed away by the rain. However, even though the village was quite old, the wooden logs were constructed skillfully, able to withstand the wet and icy wind. Each structure, whether it was a big compound with a front yard or so small that it only had a single room, was incredibly warm once the furnace inside was lit. Stupid, why did you insist on plucking them when it's raining? Look at yourself, hurry in and dry yourself. A young girl around the age of 20 stood under the roof, stomping her foot. Her face was red, either from the blame or feeling shy. In the rain, a skinny young man wearing a smile approached the entrance. He seemed hesitant to enter the house, as he was afraid that the mud on him would make the place dirty. Come on in, you're going to get sick from the cold. You were in such bad shape before, too. Su Xiaoluo dragged the young man into the house and quickly took his clothes off. As the man's shoulders and the shocking scars on his chest were exposed, the girl stomped the ground again and murmured, "Do it yourself. I've been looking after you for quite some time. It's not like I've not seen your naked body before." The skinny young man rubbed his head and let out an awkward smile. The man quickly changed into some fresh clothes. Even though they were all made of sackcloth, they were very warm. "These herbs are enough," she sighed. "The plague around Xianqi is becoming more severe. The rain is speeding up the rate of it spreading, too. A few villages are already contaminated. Adults are still able to last quite some time, but the kids and the old folks are suffering greatly. Their bodies are a lot weaker. I won't be looking after you now. I have to prepare the medicine." Su Xiaoluo smiled at the young man and went into another room to prepare the herbs. The skinny young man sat beside the furnace and gave her a smile. Su Xiaoluo giggled and said, "Is smiling all you can do? You should try your best to remember who you are instead. You can't live at my house for so long. The others would misunderstand it." Su Xiaoluo's voice became softer, as she felt rather embarrassed when saying that. "Forget it. Try and think about your past here." Su Xiaoluo turned around and walked toward the exit. However, after taking a few steps, she turned back and glanced at the shocking scar on the back of the young man's head and uttered a sigh. She had no idea what the man had gone through. The man was covered in wounds when she first saved him, but what shocked her the most was the blow to his head, which had almost cracked his skull open. He was lucky enough to stumble into her, as she was a doctor. Otherwise, he would be dead by now. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.